In 1984, which is a book written by George Orwell in 1949, he talks about a world that is in perpetual war between three sections of the world, which is basically Africa, East Asia, which is the Oriental countries, and Russia. And the world is ruled by the media. Just whatever they tell the people is what they believe. And I think this situation in the Middle East is a manufactured event. The wealth of the world is changing. There's 2 or 3 groups that fight over owning everything on planet Earth, and this is the latest way they're going to do it. In 1975, there was a movie made called 3 Days of the Condor, which was about someone in the CIA discovering there was a secret plan to start a war in the Middle East so it could be taken over. And he tries to bring this up to his superiors, and everyone says, well, don't worry about it. It was not an actual thing we were going to implement. It was just an exercise, a what if. And the harder he pushes, the more they try to eliminate him, because apparently it was something they were going to do. And I've been in this conspiracy business for the last 3 years, and other people longer than that, 6 years, 10 years, 30 years. And the rumor has been that there's going to be a war started in the Middle East, that they, in quotation marks, are trying to get a war started in the Middle East. And it looks like it's going to happen, and why I'm making this video is please don't get sucked into that, because this is a manufactured event. They have been using the Muslims against the Christians for about 1400 years, and they're stirring the pot again. We in the West, in North America, who were born here in the last 60 years or so, don't know that, because we don't have a history of the jihad coming to our country, but the Greeks do, the Romans do, the French do, the Spanish do, and the Middle European countries do, and Russia, India. There's been the same kind of horrific massacre of Christians going on for about 1400 years. So they're doing it again, and it's it will have some point where it will be over, whenever the change that they're trying to elicit happens. Like after World War I, things calmed down. Then there was the Second World War, things calmed down. Then there was the Vietnam War, and things calmed down. And there'll be this thing, and things will calm down. So it's very saddening and actually sickening to me. I haven't been watching the media for a couple of weeks, and now from 6 a.m. in the morning till 1 at night, all you see is Islamic stuff. Terrorism, people's opinions on it. This is the 1984. The media is telling us how to feel about this. And David Icke's always talking about problem, reaction, solution. Well, this problem is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Nobody's done anything about it, and they're pumping the media. It's horrible, it's worse, it's coming your way. And just this morning, President Obama was very calmly having a conversation about, well, we may escalate a little and do a little something, and well, this is the problem, reaction, solution. People go, well, what are you going to do, guys, going to do about this? The U.S.-led coalition, Britain should get in here, and the U.S. and France, and do something about this. I saw a video which I've got on my playlists, by a man whose job it is to know what's happening over there for the U.S. government. And he said this is crime on a scale that we've never seen. It's a private enterprise army stealing territory and factories and people. And that historically is the way empires are always done. They attack the populace, enslave the men, and rape the women, and they force the men to join their army under the threat of killing their wives and children. So the army grows, the territory grows, they capture weapons. This is a 5,000-year-old style of doing things, and they're using it. There's another historical fact. I have a video somewhere about this, which is if you tell a populace everything, you can control them with reason, and that would be the people in the West. If you tell the population nothing, you can control them with violence, and that would be the people in the Middle East who are doing this. And the formula works if you put them into a clash, because we want them to be reasonable, and they can't be reasonable because of a lifetime of indoctrination. So then it becomes, well, we have to do something about this, and the something is always violence. And it's worked. I've been working for the last 5,000 years. And I would warn you and encourage you, don't get involved, because it's a dirty trick. It's presented as a worldwide disaster, but what it really is war over the resources for planet Earth. And there's also the plan for the mass genocide of most of the people on the planet. Which is what the chemtrails are supposedly about. So the Chinese curse is, may you live in interesting times. Well, these will be interesting times. These are the interesting times. Might last till 2035 to the information I have. There are some other interesting historical facts that people in the West need to know that we're not told. There was a caliphate before in northern Africa along the Barbary coast. For 400 years they were pulling the slaves out of Europe. And that was ended by Teddy Roosevelt not that long ago. But they will remember that the Americans came and destroyed the caliphate, and they don't forget these kinds of historical events. There was also a caliphate in Africa, and I think the British or the French, I can't remember, who went in there and destroyed that and said no more, and destroyed all their churches and slaughtered people just like ISIS is doing now. They won't forget that. The Islamic people will not forget that. So people driving naively around in the West in their SUVs who don't understand why they would be targeted don't know there is an historical involvement. Britain created Iraq out of 3 countries that were very small to make it easier to administrate and to steal the oil, and now what's happening now is those 3 little countries want to separate back to what they were. And when we have the Sunnis and the other 2 groups. There's been a lot of interference in that area by empires, in quotation marks. But what empires don't realize, and they were warned, and the U.S. was warned. The U.S. is only a 200-year-old country, and they were warned by people who are in countries that have been 5,000 years old, that you guys may carry a big stick, but you don't really get what's going on with us and the world. You don't see Greece and Italy and France and Germany, Russia, or India, Afghanistan lining up to fight ISIS, because historically they've been in over 700 battles with Islam, and historically they lost. This is not taught in schools, but it's true. The Crusades, which you would think from what they told us in school was England and France sweeping down with Catholicism to wipe out the Islamic butchery and free Jerusalem, but actually all they did was free Jerusalem and a little bit of territory around it. It was not the end of the Islamic Empire. If you want to know the history of these two religions, there's a book by Richard Bramley called The Gods of Eden, which explains the difference between the religion started by Yeshua of Nazareth and the second part of the Islamic religion started by Muhammad. This book's not widely known. This man started researching the history of war, trying to find out why there is war, and he found out the wars are being intentionally caused, so he changed his focus to finding out who is causing these wars, and it was two large groups. It was them, they, the old world order out of Egypt. One of my teachers told me not to get involved in anything. If you're not going to do anything about it, then just don't worry about it, because you're not going to do anything about it, so why waste time and energy on it? So don't get sucked into putting on a uniform and going over there to do something about this. One of these main power groups is out of Egypt, under Ra. Ra was kicked out of Egypt by someone who took the planet over. This is probably the other group. What came out of that is the family of Ra and the loyal soldiers of Ra were divided into two groups, and the money was split between the Ra-Ka Fel, which Fel means fellowship, family, and the Ra-Ka Shields, which is the army. So that's the Rockefeller and the Rothschilds are descendants of Ra's group and have a lot of influence on the planet. Also, you can look around for anything that starts with Ka, which means of or loyal to Ra, Ka, Fel. Canada, Kansas, Canary Islands. If you take a map and look at it, you'll be really shocked to find out how many things have the K sound in them. That's a secret code, part of the that group. There's something you can look for on the media. These people have a color that they use to let other people know that they're in the game, and it's approximately this color. You'll see David Cameron and other people. Everyone now has these funny, odd, dark purple ties. I don't exactly have one like that, but they're in this dark purple range, and you now see them everywhere, which means I'm playing the game. Traitors, basically. So that'll be fun. If you watch the news, you'll see the newscasters all wearing these, and political figures telling you how they're going to save your world, and they're laughing at you behind your back because they're with the group that wants to take our freedom away. I did say in an earlier video of mine that every time the public comes close to finding out that the governments don't actually have the right to do what they're doing and taxing us and telling us what to do, they start a war, because the percentage of people who have figured out what's going on is minuscule. It might be 1/10,000th of the top 1% of humanity have figured out we're caught in a cruel game, and the rest of the people don't want to hear it. And I think that's what they're really afraid of. They might lose control of us. The criminal psychology is can't work, must have, so they steal. And I talked to my bank manager, and she said the only two people that have money are either people who receive inheritances or stock market windfalls. No one has money from hard work. So if someone has money from not the stock market and not an inheritance, they probably stole it in one fashion or another. And our overview has become big enough that we see we could have an ethical planet. And maybe 80% of us would say, yes, we do want that. And 20% of us are under the control of the psychopaths who are sitting at the top of the pile. And the person who has the technology on that is in Ireland. He's written a book called Labyrinth of the Psychopath. And Peter OUSPENSKY 100 years ago said it's very odd that only in humanity do you find the psychopathic forms being dominant over the normal forms. Thomas Sheridan, that's the name of the man there. He's a brilliant researcher and very down to earth, down home. He's the first person who said this is the problem. Even the Scientologists couldn't figure this out. They call them suppressive persons, but they say they can't be cured. For right now, they need to be exposed that this is a phenomenon that does exist. They exist in governments, churches, big business, possibly your marriage, the bad teacher you had at school, the insane people. This bullying is psychopaths getting together in school and practicing because they realize they don't fit in. They meet a few others of the same ilk and they start working on how to become dominant over us, because they're upset because they're out of the main group, because they don't have empathy or emotions. And they have a lot of drive and intelligence, most of them, so it's quite easy for them to cut a swath through normal people, because normal people are not aware that they're there. They just think this is a one-out, this guy's a jerk. They don't realize he's they're calling it a subspecies of humanity. We don't know if it's nature or nurture, but the first stage would be for the public at large to become aware of them. For example, we now have the child pedophile registry. We never had that before. We have Amber Alerts. We never had that before. We have the serious offender registry. If you're a serious offender and you move into a neighborhood, you're on the internet. This man is now living in your neighborhood. We never had that before. We never had 911 before. Only the British had that, and everyone thought, "Oh, gee, nice to have that." Now, call 911 worldwide. So it's possible to change the world for the better. And this thing in the Middle East is being done by the big league psychopaths. They don't mind trammeling on the world and your freedom for more money and more fun. So I think it's going to happen. I've been trying to warn people for the last 3 years about this, and people like Terry Cassidy and all those people. Jordan Maxwell has been doing this for 50 years. And he's quite disappointed that no one listened to him. He's been telling the truth about this for 50 years, and no takers except a few people in the conspiracy business. They keep burning his records and stealing his stuff, but he keeps on going. So I tried to warn you, tried to tell everybody aspects of this coming, and now it's here, and now it's going to escalate, and don't get sucked into fear, anger, hatred. Work on your esoteric beingness, because you can do more with your mind. Blanket statement. You can do more about this with your mind than you can with physical action. And if you are upset and worried about it, you can't use your mental powers. So think globally and work locally.